Autry here once again. Hope you are doing well. I'm so happy to join you today. Today we have another exciting topic as always. I have another guest coming to join us, and I hope that you would enjoy today's topic. But first off, let us make sure that a lot of people are following this discussion, and I hope that you will benefit a lot from it, especially people in school and people who are hoping to be entrepreneurs in the next few years. Today's topic is bridging the gap or reinventing the classroom, and I've subtitled it Bridging the Gap Between the Lecture Room and the Job Market. Bridging the gap between the lecture room and the job market. Why is this topic so important? This topic is so important because the dynamics are changing. The dynamics are changing for one reason. We are in a different dispensation altogether. With COVID hitting us, a lot of things are changing. The educational sector is not going to be the same as we used to know it. We need to rethink how the educational sector should look like. So today, what I did was to invite an educator like myself, who is also into business and who is also an entrepreneur, to come and share with us what he thinks we could do to reinvent the classroom and reposition ourselves, reposition our classroom, reinvent our classrooms and make it more viable in the marketplace. And so this is what we are going to talk about today. But before Mr. Tebri comes on, I want every one of you to go out there, just tap the button and share with as many people as you wish to. So if you can go, you can do that with me. Let's share it together. Just click on the send button on your screen and just send it to somebody. Okay, send it to as many people as you want. Okay, just send it, and then get your friends to join. And so I believe that this topic is so essential because this year there'll be a number of people that are going to graduate. But the question is, are these people prepared enough to take the job market on? Are they prepared enough to make sure they get themselves integrated into the job market? And so this is what we are going to talk about, and I believe that at the end of it all, you are going to benefit from it. So let's bring Mr. Tebri on. I think he's giving me a signal, so let's go. To join us. I think he's having a little bit of technical issues, but Pastor Tebri, if you are ready, just give me a signal by sending a request and I'll bring you on. This question, reinventing the classroom, how do we reinvent the classroom? How can we reinvent the classroom? Is a dicey topic. The classroom has been a place has been there since the beginning of time, right? The educational sector is the only sector that has not seen innovation in almost a century, right? So Pastor Tebri is on. Let's see if we can get him on this time. Okay, change that. This is something we will have to talk about. Is this pandemic going to change that phenomenon? That phenomenon that has not been broken in over 100 years. Is this pandemic, is the COVID-19 pandemic going to bring a disruption in the educational sector? And this is what we are going to look at if Pastor Tebri comes on, right? Mr. Tebri comes on. Mr. Tebri, as an educator, as myself, I chose him because he is an educator, just like myself, an entrepreneur. We both have businesses that are running, and we will talk about the businesses that we are both promoting, and why it is important for people in academia to embrace entrepreneurship. We will talk about these whole issues because one thing is this: people in academia are supposed to look to train people in the job market. They are supposed to train students and prepare them for the job market. Then there's an absolutely need for the students to be market ready. Now, there's a time that we have very few job opportunities for a large group of people. Now, what is the role of the educator? What is the role of the educator during this time of COVID-19? What can the educator do to be able to train a new batch of students for the job market? There's another question we'll be asking Mr. Tebri, but we are still having difficulty with the technical challenge. We are having technical challenge. It will work. Brother Tebri, if you don't mind, could you join us with with another line? Because it looks like this one comes and goes. It comes and goes. It comes and goes. And I know you are trying your best, but I don't know if you can just move a bit and get the network stable. All right. So as I was saying, there's a need for us to reinvent the classroom. As an educator and as an entrepreneur, I see that need. Then the question is, even let's ask this question: do educators need to be entrepreneurs? My view is this: educators need to be entrepreneurs. Why? Educators need to have a business mind. Because why do I say this? Because educators are training people to integrate into the job market. They are training people to go into businesses. They are training people to go into industry. Now, if the trainer does not have the brain of a business person, what is he going to put in the brains of these students, right? So whatever you are teaching your students, whatever you are teaching, be it maths, be it science, be it technology, you must give them a mindset, all right, that will make them go out there and do something for themselves. That's the first thing. The second thing is that you must also be able to help them integrate and work with a group of people. And so it's so important for you, for the instructor or for the educator, to be able to teach all this aside his main teaching the core subjects that he's been assigned to teach. Because the fact is, if the educator teaches the core subject and the students are able to go through a period of 4 years but are struggling to position themselves in the job market, it goes nothing. It comes to cost 90, because the student pays a lot of tuition fees, spends 4 years in school, hoping that at the end of the day he will get something, a job, to be able to start his life. And then he goes out there and makes that realities are different, and that the job is different from what he has been taught. All right. So the question is, how can he fit? So should educators be able to, should educators teach students to be able to fit? Yes, absolutely. Educators need students to be able to fit. Educators actually have to be a bridge between what is happening out there and what is happening in the classroom. Because if educators are not have lose touch of what is happening in the marketplace, I don't think that they can give the right insight to people in the four corners of the classroom, irrespective of whatever course they are teaching. Because whatever course you are teaching, you should know what is happening in the industry to be able to teach your students to be able to be up, okay, to be at par with the realities that is happening in the industry. And this is what is missing in the educational system, right? Gone are the days where somebody teaches just a particular course, teaches just commerce, and that is it. How does the commerce apply to what is happening in the job market? All right. So it's so important that educators have business brains, have entrepreneurial insight to be able to educate students in the marketplace to be able to go out there. All right. So we are still waiting for Mr. Tebri to join us, and we hope he would join. All right. This is an exciting topic. It's a very insightful topic, and we're still having a challenge with Mr. Tebri joining, but we will not give up, because when you are an entrepreneur, you don't give up, right? You go back, look at what is the problem is, and then come back again, right? And so we are not going to give up. We're going to keep trying until Mr. Tebri is able to get through. All right. So as we wait for Mr. Tebri, we go up again. Please get your friends, get your family to join this discussion. It's a very important discussion that you cannot miss, right? Your future depends on it. If you're out there, you have a child, your child's future depends on it. The educational sector is one of the biggest, in fact, if not the biggest sector in any country. It's the biggest, or if not the biggest, okay, in any country. But it has seen very little years. All right, it has seen very little innovation over 100 years. You can imagine 100 years, a century, and the educational sector is still the same. Just look at something. A car that was invented in the late 50s or 60s. Like, cars were invented in the late 40s and 60s. At first, we used to ride on a horse, and then Ford came with the tricycle, right? And then it went through a period of innovation, and then we got our present day car, right? The car has transformed in many years, all right? The phone on which I'm hosting this show has transformed in many years. The computer, right? If you look at IBM's mainframe computers some years ago, they were huge. They could fill a whole room. But today, we can have a computer as small as your palm. It has gone through the innovation process, right? So many products, so many things that we used to use has gone through the innovation process. But the question is, the educational sector hasn't seen much innovation over 100-year period. And I've taken it upon myself to be able to make sure that, of course, there is an innovation in the system. As an educator and also as an entrepreneur, I have that duty. And if you're a student out there, a student does not necessarily mean somebody who is in the four corners of the classroom. Be a live student, all right? With COVID, everybody is at home. Even those who have registered to be in the university campuses are at home, right? And so currently, the situation does not afford you to be in the four corners of the classroom, but you are still a student wherever you find yourself, right? And so very soon what is going to happen is that the four corners of the classroom will not be the ultimate place to study. Education will be gotten everywhere, all right? You can study for a degree in your home, registered to a physical university, not an online university, a physical university. And that is where I'm seeing the trend, where things are going to go. Let's see again if Mr. Tebri is going to join. So that is that is the innovation I'm seeing. Let me share what I see coming is this. In our country, for instance, we have the government's policy on free SHS, right? Now, the number of students that the government is going to churn out for this year's universities far outweighs the infrastructure framework of most of the universities combined. All the universities combined, right? The question is, will there be enough room to contain these great numbers of students that are going to finish SSC? No. That is the frank answer. No. So what is going to happen? All right? What is going to happen? I promise you this. What is going to happen is this. The government will not be in a position to provide infrastructure for all these students. So I see that is going to happen is that this policy of online learning has come to stay. and it's not going away anytime soon. Online learning has come to stay. It's not going away anytime soon. What is going to happen basically is that we're going to have people registering with physical universities, right? And they are going to stay at home, visit the campus maybe twice in a month to follow a large lecture and go back home and follow the rest of the lecture at home. Trust you me, this is what I see happening, because the government cannot have enough infrastructure to contain the number of students that are going to be churned out this year. It's not magic. They can't. And so since education occupies the largest chunk of the country's budget, right? Even with the amount of money they are going to invest in the educational sector, they still cannot put up enough buildings to continue. So what are they going to do? They are going to rely on online learning, right? Continuing students. Why do you think continuing students in universities haven't reported so far? Why? Right? What I believe is happening is this. I believe that the government wants to test the system and see how best educators will make use of the system. I mean, the online, if it is, it goes through the testing. Most of the that are going to invest this year, we need to really look at it. Should it remain the same? Can we reinvent the sector? Can we rethink the sector? Can we rebrand the sector? Is education only useful in the four corners of the classroom? Is education only useful in the four corners of the classroom? How can we make it useful outside the four corners of the classroom? This is a discourse that merits discussion. And so I invited Mr. Tebri, a lecturer, an entrepreneur, co-founder of TD TED Elite, to join us tonight to be able to discuss this topic. Unfortunately, we are having difficulty with the technology. We are having difficulty with him signing on. But I promise you that if he does come on, we're going to have a fruitful discussion. So I'm going to be here trying to have this discussion with you out there until he comes to join. So what we are talking about today is reinventing the classroom. Reinventing the classroom. Can the classroom be reinvented? And how, if the classroom can be reinvented, how can the classroom be reinvented? These are the things we are thinking about. Can the classroom be reinvented? If it can be reinvented, how can it be reinvented? Why am I pushing for this topic? I'm pushing for this topic because, look, frankly, the educational sector is the only sector, as I've said earlier, that has seen innovation in a 100-year period. For 100 years, the way students sit in class is the same way they are sitting. In 100 years, the way lecturers, professors teach in a classroom is the same way they are teaching. For 100 years, big institutions taking big tuition fees are following the same trend. Will this ever change? If it can change, how can it change? How can it be transformed? All right. So this is something that, as an educator and an entrepreneur, I seek to look at. What is the best way to reinvent the educational system? What is the best way to rebrand the educational system? You know, nothing happens without a reason. I personally believe that one of the sectors that is likely to see huge transformation is the educational sector, during this period of COVID-19. All right. So Mr. Tebri is back on. Let's see if this time it will work. All right. Okay. That's the main reason why we need to rethink the technology, because it always has to evolve. Technologies have to evolve over time. So we are trying to get our guest on, but the network will not permit us. And so we are still waiting for our guest to come on. But I still am passionate about discussing this topic, because we believe that this topic is key. The largest, or one of the largest sectors of every budget, I always say, is the educational budget. The educational budget occupies a huge chunk of every country's budget. But unfortunately, the educational budget has seen very little innovation over a long time, over a century. Yes, that's a step on. Good. I told you, entrepreneurs never give up. We keep trying and keep trying. Good to see you, Brother David. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Ricky.
Great.
I had to change phones before I could join you.
Wow. So I was telling for you whilst we try to get on. We are looking at, before we look at the topic, we want you to have introduce yourself. Tell us who's Mr. Degree. I know you're a pastor, so I call you Mr. Degree. So tell us a bit about yourself and what you do. Did you get a question?
Can you repeat the last part?
So before we delve into the topic, we want to get to know you. We want to get to know Mr. Tebu, Pastor Tebu, what you do and what you are into.
Okay. All right. As you said, my name is Asumodu Teburi, and I'm an engineer by profession. I lecture at Sunyani Technical University, Materials Engineering Department, and I've taught there since 2012. So I've been around for a while, and I have two companies. One I started with a friend, and another which is a merger, which is quite big. That's TD Technologies. That is the company that is responsible for food joints. Wow. And then there is another bigger one that formed recently, and that is Third Elite Company Limited, and that's a merger with another company. So basically, that's me.
Yeah, I also learned that you are the head of department of your department. You are the head of your department.
Yeah. I'm currently the head of department of the Materials Engineering Department.
That's great. Yes. So the topic for today, we are looking at how we can reinvent the classroom during this period of COVID-19. The pandemic has thrown all of us off guard. Nobody expected a pandemic. Educators like you and I have to rethink the process of lecturing because our students are not in the classroom as usual. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, how can we reinvent the classroom, looking at the current situation?
It's been an interesting 3 months or 4 months, I'd say. We've tried to reach our students with Zoom. We've tried to reach our students the platform, the school's platform, and we are combining almost everything online. And that is because we were very unprepared for this pandemic. And so it is teaching us a lot of things. It is teaching us that we've been doing everything in the wrong because there's not been challenges. We've not looked at what we're doing and how we can change it to suit everyone. I remember I went for a meeting and we're discussing how do we teach practical subjects online? How do we teach calculations online? And it became a difficult thing because the only way you could do that would be videos. And our networks are not strong enough to even handle video streaming yet. So how are we going to do that? And so basically, it's been a challenge for all of us in the education field. And I think I remember you saying for a century now, the classroom has not been reinvented. And that is because we are lazy to change things. The current setting of a classroom is comparable to when we used to use the industrialization age, where you go to work, and then when you go to work, after some time you have a break, and then you go back to the work schedule. Then you're given a supervisor who will then explain to you your task for the day, and it becomes a routine. So every day you go, you sit down, or you go, you attend to the machine, and then you would have to think in a certain way. You think in a certain box, and so that has been the start. And so when we wanted to do the technical university education, the whole thing we had to bring a lot of practical stuff in. So we invented something like CBT. We became a part of that curriculum that is competence based, and it requires that we have to use a lot of training, a lot of hands-on training. And then another challenge was also that we don't have equipment. And so this whole thing has been an interesting thing. But I think we as entrepreneurs cannot even employ the students that come out of this system because they are not trained to be employable. They are not trained to be practically oriented. They are not trained to fit in the industry. They are trained to think in a certain way, to memorize things in a certain way, to produce answers in a certain way. So you produce students and they come, and industries have to spend time again and money again to retrain them. And so there's definitely a need to reinvent the education system.
Yeah. So what boggles my mind is that most budgets in almost any country has the educational budget occupying the chunk of the cake.
Yeah.
A lot of them have the educational budget occupying the biggest chunk of the national cake. So the question is, if the educational sector has the biggest budget, the national distribution cake, why is it that it has still not seen the needed innovation that it has over a century now?
Yeah, I think I was discussing this with something with one of my managers the last time. That money is not the issue. Whenever you are building a company or building any setup, money is not the issue. The main issue has always been what is it we have to do. Because if you make money available and people are not willing to change the way things are done, then it's going to be difficult. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
You know, the current Deputy Minister of Education, I don't know whether he's the Minister of Education or Deputy. I listened to him speak in Kenya. And one of the things he was stressing was that the American system has it that if you want to become an aerospace engineer, what you need to do is that right from infancy, you are taken to a school that teaches aerospace engineering. And so you don't have to go through the normal class 1, class 2, grade 1, to go to JHS, you go to SHS, to university before you even choose to become an aerospace engineer. So one of the ways we can, and he suggested that for our next 20 years of the education system. And I think we don't need it the next 20 years. We need it now. We have to be able to choose the patterns of our kids even at the infancy. When we realize that this is what they are good at, this is what they want to do, we straight away have to put them in that education. The current education line, the current system has it that we force everybody to swim, even though they are probably horses, and we force everybody to be in water, even though they are not supposed to be in water. And so everybody is supposed to learn one thing, and then after learning that thing, then you can go ahead and learn something else. And so if the focus is that we need to now structure education systems such that we place premium on competence and practicals and what you can do, then what we can, that's where then we have to channel the money to. And so you can have money, you can build classrooms, you can build equipment, you can build all that there is to build. But if you don't really know the focus and the next level, what exactly you want to do with it, you waste it. And that's, unfortunately, that's what has been happening to us.
Yeah, great. I think you've nailed it. But the question then is, if you are proposing that we build hands-on educational models where students are taught to do things hands-on, the question then is shifted to the people, the very people who are supposed to teach those skills, the educators, you and I. Now, the fact is that the educators themselves have not had enough physical training, right? The educators themselves have not had enough physical training to be able to capital knowledge on their students. Please, did you get me up to now? You get a question. If you are supposed to build on practical skills, right? If you're supposed to build on practical skills, just as you are proposing, the people to do that is the educators. That is you and I who are educators in the educational system. But unfortunately, the educators have not had practical skills themselves. Basically, what they do is research. All right? And they do research. So let's say if somebody is teaching a course in entrepreneurship and all that, his role is to do research on companies and then come and teach the students, right? What do you say to the point that I made earlier that educators like you and I need to be hands-on in the job market to be able to teach effectively practical skills in the four corners of the classroom? What do you say to that? So that we merge the industry and the classroom.
The question again, I was breaking up.
We're initially proposing that we teach our students hands-on practical skills, right? Hands-on practical skills. We're proposing hands-on practical skills.
Okay, so if I heard you right, your question is?
Yes. Did you get a question? Did you get a question? Hello? Did you get a question? Hello? Did you get a question?
Yeah.
Yes. So what do you think?
Not a question.
Do you think educators need hands-on practical experience in the marketplace to be able to effectively impact that knowledge on our students?
Yes. We need the hands-on and practical education in Ghana. You see, when China and South Korea wanted to develop their education system, that is something they didn't take for granted. That is something that they paid attention to. If you want to produce students that will work in the industry, you can't take away hands-on. If you train students with our current system, what you do is that you train them to also become teachers. You train them to also fit in education, but you don't train them to fit in the industry. And so one of the things that I'm currently doing at the department is that we are coming up with the Gold Center of Excellence, where we're going to engage industry. and let them go through our course structure. Let them tell us this course is not necessary anymore. The industry is not interested in this course anymore. This approach to the way you teach this course is wrong. We have passed there a long time. Or now, this is our focus. If we don't engage industry in our curricula, in the way we do things in the classroom, what will happen is we'll train students who cannot even be entrepreneurs on themselves because they don't have any practical knowledge how entrepreneurship work out there. And so they can do entrepreneurship in the classroom, they can go there, learn how to become a CEO, and they will never become a CEO themselves. Because the way things work out there is difficult. You started a business yourself, and I've started, I think this is my third company. And so I've seen it all. I've seen how difficult to break through, how difficult to go for sales, how difficult to do marketing. And we've seen the practicalities of starting a company. And this is not taught in the classroom. If you don't let your students understudy CEOs, understudy people already in the job market, you cannot produce students that will fit. And so our attachment, our internships are supposed to be hands-on. We are supposed to push our students to do those stuff. And the reports are supposed to be scrutinized. One other thing that we have to be careful about is that our students, when they go to these attachments and these places for internship, in these companies, hardly do they produce any results when they come back to school. And when you ask them, they'll tell you that when we went there, they sent us around. We would never got to learn anything. And this is something we have. If we are going to get to the next level of education, we have to make sure industry is appreciated in our curricula, and we have to also make sure industry also knows what academia is doing. And one other thing is that how do you find lecturers going for internship and attachments? Lecturers do not. And so we'll sit in the classroom, we'll teach one thing over and over again, our notes will be archaic, and we'll still make the students memorize it. So, so the lecturers have also lost touch,
you see,
with industry.
You see, until, just as you just said, until we as educators, as lecturers, go and do internship ourselves in these companies, we cannot teach the practical hands-on proposal that we are making. Why? Because the fact is that we are supposed to train students for the job market. And so if you, the educator, do not know what is happening in the job market, how can you then teach a student to be able to fit in the job market? You see, so teachers or educators or lecturers must not only be researchers, reviewing papers, but they must also be in-field apprentices. All right? They must be apprentices studying from what is happening in the industry themselves. They must study the industry trends themselves. Now, when they study the industry trends, they can then come back to the classroom and restructure their lecture around the current trends that are happening. Right? Because if you are reviewing a book and you are going to teach the review of that book, how old is that book? How recent is that book for you to be able to change? You realize that most of the things that we teach our students, by the time they finish school, they have to relearn because the modalities have changed, right? And that is the reason why I invited you to this interview, because I also know that as a lecturer, you are into building startups, just like myself. And you by learning the art of building startups, you learn a lot of skills that you will not even be taught in business school. So I want to ask you, what are some of the skills that you learned building, for example, Food Joint? Because Food Joint is trending, it's learning, as almost everybody knows about it. What did you learn in building these as an educator?
Yeah, you see, the first thing I did when I was starting TD Technologies and when we were starting Food Joint was to study people already in the industry. And so I went to the very best. I studied Elon Musk for years. I think I studied Elon Musk for 2 years, learning everything about him, learning how he manages to get his companies running, learning how SpaceX works, learning how Tesla works, and then Warren Buffett. I followed them. I watched the top CEOs and what they do, and I learned so much from them. Because the only way you can, I didn't necessarily read a lot of books, but I watched them very well to pick my nose, to write my nose down, to know what exactly these people are doing practically that are working for them. Because we are always used to books, reading the books, coming up with strategies and all that, but most of them are theories that don't really work. And sometimes to the century that we are, and the current trend of things, you can read those things and implement them. And so Amazon was a company I followed a lot when I wanted to start food joint. I followed DoorDash, I followed Deliveroo, I followed Uber Eats. I followed all those companies to know how the thing is done practically, the industrial trend, what is going on now, how is food delivery done, how is the software, how does the software work. So even though in house we had an idea as to what we wanted to do. To be successful out there takes more than just that. And so I had to study the market, I had to learn and unlearn some of the things that I thought would work. And then when we started practically too, the whole thing was different. The whole thing was different because we realized that the customer behavior of the people in Sunyani is different from the customer behavior of the people in Kumasi, and it's even totally different from those in Techiman. And so when you hit the ground, you realize that things are not theoretical anymore. Things are practical. One of my friends, you either adapt or you get lost. Because when you learn all the theories and you are implementing them, executing all the strategies, it's not that easy. And sometimes you realize that you need to go back to your drawing board. And so we always learn and adapt. We learn and adapt. We learn and adapt. And that has been how we've been surviving. And so you learn all the theories and everything there is to learn. At the end of the day, it is the grounds that will teach you what to do. And so when you hit with one strategy, you hit with strategy two, and you realize that none of them is working, then you have to learn from the customers. And we are getting complaints, we are getting feedback, we are getting all that, and we are working on it. And we are food joint is going at the end of this month. Food joint is going to be totally different because we've been sitting for meetings, we've been learning for 1 year what exactly we've been doing wrong, what exactly we've been doing right. The customers are still ordering, but we have to improve our services, and that has been what we've been learning. And so you will learn a lot at school, but the reality is that all that you will learn, you have to prove yourself when you come out there. And it's always a difficult task when you don't have any idea as to what the industry is expecting of you. You will get swallowed up. And so once you step in, you have to do what you can to survive.
Let me ask this question. Having experienced the process of starting a business as an educator, what have you been able to impact this knowledge as an engineer in your courses? Have you been able to?
Have I been? The last part.
Have you been able to, the process of starting and building a startup like Food Joint, right? How have you been able to incorporate the principles that you studied on the ground, building Food Joint in your lecture in the classroom?
Yeah, so the first thing we try to teach our students, especially materials engineering, is to teach them to come up with innovations and to teach them to come up with new way of thinking and solving problems. And most of the problems might not necessarily be the machines and the materials you're going to work with. Some problems can be, you look at the society and you find so many problems, and you have to adapt and use some of the engineering principles and apply them to reality in order to solve some of those problems. And so one thing I've learned from the field as an entrepreneur is to be able to come up with new strategies and make them work in the industry, or make them work out there, make people buy into what you're doing. and how to sell exactly what you want people to know. And so if you have a product, how do you sell the product? If you come up with an invention, you see, we engineers are basically working on new ideas, working on inventions, working on re-engineering of some of the things that are already existing. Now, when you work on it, you have to tell it to the companies to adapt some of these things that you come up with. So how do you go to them? How do you explain to them that this thing has value out there? This thing will be marketable. This thing that they are doing is wrong. The feedback we are getting from the industry, from our surveys, is that this very thing doesn't work anymore. So how do you get the companies to listen to you from the expert point of view? If you don't understand how consumers, the customers work, how they buy things and they consume it, and the feedback they bring, when you try to explain some of these things to them, there'll be a missing link. You won't know what you're talking about. Sometimes what you think even is a problem wouldn't be a problem when you go out there. And so we are learning a lot, especially when it comes to marketing and sales, and how to start things, how to start businesses, how to start an idea. If you come up with an idea as an engineer and you invent, let's say, a machine, how do you bring the machine out? And starting all the companies, at least what I've learned is exactly that. How, if I come up with an invention or I come up with an idea, how I'm going to sell it out. And these are some of the things we add to our teaching as well. Well, when we try to educate our students, try to tell them, don't just complete school and look for jobs. When you complete school, you can become an entrepreneur on your in your own way. You can start whatever. So the project works that we are giving them mostly are project works that they can finish and continue themselves without help from outside. One of the projects we gave to one of the year was to make their own, get scraps and make their own utensils or make their own shapes and stuff that they can sell. So when they finish school, instead of going to work with the utensil companies or going to work with companies that make gear or make other spare parts, they can set up their own company and make spare parts and sell them and get money out of it. And so throughout, from the beginning to the end, that has been the focus. And when you get to the final year, there are courses like entrepreneurship, management, that are supposed to shape your thinking towards that direction. And so we bring a whole lot of these practical stuff into into the classroom so that we get them to focus there.
Now, the next question I want to ask: how are students taking these new lectures? How are they seeing it? Are they adapting to the new model of teaching in terms of the new adapt?
I think when they,
Pardon?
Yeah, when they see that it works, you are doing it out there. Sometimes they are surprised that their lecturer is the one coming up with this this whole.
Yeah. So how are they adapting in terms of, because one way I believe students can learn and adapt is when they see the lecturer actually doing it themselves. If the lecturer himself is practical and is doing something practical, it is easier to convince the student to go suit or to follow suit. But what I have seen is that most of the time the lecturer tells the students to do a particular thing, and actual fact, they themselves do not do that particular thing. And so you end up having to educate the student to do something practical, and the lecturer himself is not doing that practical thing. And so he's not able to better appreciate what the student does. But just like you do, you have started a business, not just one, but twice or even 3 companies. And so your students who know about what you are doing can better appreciate them when you teach them, right?
Yeah.
So that is what I was proposing, that lecturers have to be appointed in the job market themselves. They have to know what is actually happening in the job market to be able to teach it in the classroom, irrespective of how you are teaching your students. Now, the thing is that as an engineering lecturer, you have students who finish engineering and are sitting in the banks. I don't know if you've met one of them. The person did electrical engineering, he did materials engineering, and you find the next time in the bank. That is
Yeah, it happens a lot.
And the question I do ask myself is that, what happened to the engineering education? Is it that the person was not innovative enough to create something for himself? Or what the person was not built an engineer from the scratch? Or there was no motivation enough to something for himself? What is preventing our engineers from, because there are very few engineering companies in Ghana, very few of them. But every year we train engineering students. What is the problem?
I think basically the problem is survival. People want to survive. They want to. They go and they look around. They are not getting jobs, and so the first thing that smiles at them, they take it, and then they continue from there. I think basically that's the fundamental one. But then people also, right from the beginning, they didn't have the passion for engineering. There are some people that probably wanted to go into finance, wanted to go into banking and all that. So when they finish and the bank says that, oh, it's okay, come with your engineering, we can put you at operations or somewhere, they jump at it and they switch courses. Some also throughout their school ages, they struggle through the course. And so when they finish, they want to pursue other things. And basically, sometimes it's lack of motivation. They don't see the engineering firms around. They don't how they want to do it. They don't think they can go to that level in Ghana. So sometimes they switch in order to be comfortable. And so there are several reasons why people will switch. But basically, schools don't really teach you to work in the engineering firm or to work in the field. What we do is that we give you general knowledge across board. And so when first degree when graduates come out, they basically have no clue as to how they are going to work in factories. They have no clue as to how they are going to work in companies. As a matter of fact, they don't even know the companies that are available to them that they can even apply to go and work there. And so they have no idea. There is this course that I introduced in my curricula called the engineering economy. And engineering economy is supposed to introduce you to all the industries, their problems that they are facing, and how you can solve it. And so those are practical courses that if Ghana, we take Ghana, the course is meant to introduce the industries that are in Ghana, the big guys, players, some of the companies that you are likely to meet, and then their issues they are facing in the industry, how do you solve the issues and all that. But most of the times we realize that the students finish and they don't even know where to apply to. They finish school, they have done engineering, and they have very few engineering firms that they can apply to. And most of the times, once again, we don't train people to be entrepreneurs. Our education system has very little emphasis on entrepreneurship. And so you finish school, start you have no clue how to start a company. Skype was started by students that attended my former school, my university that I attended. Microsoft was started by students. Apple was started by students. Almost all these big companies were started by students. Facebook, the recent example, was started by students. And so there's so much that students can do when they come out of school. But if you come to Africa, the narrative is different. If you come to Africa, big men start companies. You hardly see students, first degree holders that have come out and want to start a company. Everybody thinks that I have to continue, I have to do my master's before I can start a company. There's actually a statistics that says that most of the companies that are started by young guys or first degree holders, but the few that survive are the ones that get the top. If you trace any industry in America, that has been the factor that we've missed and it's lost in Ghana and in Africa.